Hi everyone, this is Shira here, and this is lecture 11 for our Practicum course. This is the second last lecture for the fall semester, and it is a online lecture, so we will be dealing with the following topics. I have a few announcements, and after that we'll be reviewing the critical reflection process and also reviewing the observation reflection report. So everybody knows exactly what the expectations are for the final assignment for our fall semester. First is this week, as a reminder, we have our task-based teaching challenge number 3 due. This is the presentation of a lesson plan for a speaking lesson at the Link CLB level mixed class 2 to 3. It is groups C and D that will be presenting and groups A and B that will be reviewing. And our next class is our final class for the fall semester. It is a live face-to-face class, and it is also the date that the observation reports are due. And it will also be doing a lot of preparing for the winter placement, so it will be a quite important class. Let's continue. So the critical reflection process. Let's start with a quote and an understanding from Peter Papas on the process of reflection. He defines reflection as to reflectively experience is to make connections within the details of the work of the problem, to see it through the lens of abstraction or theory, to generate one's own questions about it, to take more active and conscious control over understanding. So the reason why I'm presenting this to you at the start of this online lecture is because although students often focus on the observations that they've seen in their observation reflection report, it is important to focus on the reflective properties of the report to get the highest possible score. If you recall, I introduced this Kolb's experiential learning cycle towards the beginning of this semester's lectures. And this is the experiential education model in which the style of practicum courses and education in general is manifested. Although I did explain it to you one time, I thought that you could get another person's explanation, which I'll be giving to you in a minute. Just to review, we as teachers experience something concrete. In your case, it is the observation 1 and observation 2. And then we reflect on it through reflective observation. And this is really the point in which you will be actively exploring the observation reflection report. The abstract conceptualization is the conclusion and the learning that you can conclude based on the experience of the previous cycles of the experiential learning cycle. And the active experimentation will happen for you in the winter semester when you are actively teaching and trying to navigate through some of the issues and successful techniques that you've witnessed through the observation process. I thought that we could watch a 2-minute video which would further explain the Kolb's model, and it will also explain why it's important for us as teachers. Sorry, let me just move over.
So this video explores the notion of reflection, and it's based on the idea that as teachers we are engaged in a very practical activity, but that we often reflect on what we said and did in a particular session during or after the event, and that reflection might result in new ideas or conclusions about teaching that cause us to adapt our approach for the future. And this is something that we can do in a cyclical way aimed at improving our teaching on an ongoing basis. So we do something in our teaching, then we think about it, we draw some conclusions about it, and in light of those conclusions we adapt. And then of course we do it again to see what happens as a result of our adaptations. And then we think about that new experience and we draw new conclusions and perhaps adapt once more. And this process of learning from experience forms the basis for the ideas of David Kolb, who is an American educational theorist, born in 1939 and living in Ohio. He decided that he would describe each of the stages in the cycle, giving a very general title to each stage, so that the model can then be used by many people across a whole range of different contexts. Now, this naming of things to make them generally applicable is what we mean by theory, and Kolb here is trying to develop a theory of reflection. In other words, a reusable idea with broad applications. An abstract concept, if you like. Now, the names he came up with are as follows. Concrete experience for the doing stage. Reflective observation for the thinking stage. Abstract conceptualization for the concluding stage. And active experimentation for the adapting stage. And this has become known as Kolb's reflective cycle. But remember, it's drawn from that real-life scenario of experiential learning that Kolb observed in the first instance.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that there. I feel like that is another explanation as for how this assignment works, and I think it also helps guide you for the type of thinking that is required in order to succeed at this assignment, the observation reflection report. Another helpful taxonomy for you to be aware of while working on your observation reflection report is the Bloom's taxonomy on critical reflection. So, I mean, it is quite a short report given the possibilities from which you can explore in the report. So I want to make sure that you're using your pages most effectively. If we look at the levels of deep reflection that are possible, I mean, that starts with remembering, what did I do? So all of the details about, on Tuesday, October, whatever, I was in this classroom with this many students, with this on the wall, and this is our seating arrangement. This is mostly the remembering or the recalling stage. What did you do? What did things look like? Etc. This is, I guess, really the basic level of reflection. Moving on from there, we have the demonstration of understanding. What was important about it? And in order to demonstrate that understanding and really to pinpoint where this understanding comes from, I feel like that's when you would be using the next level of applying. Where could I use this again? Or also, which models from your methodology and our practicum course are applicable when trying to give meaning to these experiences. At the next level, we have analyzing. The question that they ask in this taxonomy is, do I see any patterns in what I did? However, there are other methods of analyzing, like dissecting the lesson into parts and identifying what was the most important and making connections between the theory and the practice. At the next level, we have evaluating. The question we see here is, how well did I do? But also, instead of just putting it in terms of I, evaluating is evaluating what you observed in observation 1 and observation 2, in thinking about how effective the strategies and the methods that you saw your teachers employ, thinking about how effective those were to target the student needs, how effective the learning objectives were in targeting the learning outcomes for the course, etc., making those types of connections. And at the highest level of critical reflection, according to Bloom, that is, there is the creation stage. So this is thinking about now what? What should I do next? How does this information apply to my life as a student or a teacher candidate, rather? And how might I apply this information for my winter teaching practicum? and how might I produce things, or what kind of alternative methods might I employ given on what I experienced in the observation. I did want to show you two other resources in which you can get more information about the critical reflection taxonomy. One is here. Right, so this here is actually Peter Papas. He's the gentleman from which I quoted the reflection earlier in the online lesson. And he has a really nice website about reflective teacher taxonomy. So this website here, and this is where I also borrowed this taxonomy of reflection. So this website here is really nice in giving more information, asking the right types of questions. If you feel like you're getting stuck and you're not sure what is the most important information to include in your report, I could suggest that you visit this site and ask yourselves the questions that he has outlined here in order to best guide your practice. And another place that you can, another place that you can visit here is this one YouTube video also to understand more about the Bloom's taxonomy. Let's see if I can pull it up. There's actually a lot of videos on YouTube about Bloom's taxonomy. I like this one because I found it simple and short and well explained. So if you wanted to watch a video about Bloom's taxonomy, look for one that just says Bloom's taxonomy. It's about 4 minutes.
The Center for Academic Success presents Bloom's taxonomy, a classification of learning levels. It maps the way we think and process information. The levels of learning are remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. The lower levels are more...
Okay, so my intention wasn't to watch the whole video today, but to show you how you can access it if you wish to get more information about this. And also Bloom's regular taxonomy had been kind of reapplied in order to access the cognitive domain. So this is another method in the application of his taxonomy. I thought this could be useful for you as well if you were looking specifically for sample verbs that you could be using to explain your ideas in your critical thinking. So this one here identifies sample verbs that you could use to describe knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. And as the previous taxonomy, it would be recommended to focus your energy on the higher cognitive domains of analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. It's really not unlike the analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So they're quite linked together. So now I thought we could revisit the observation reflection report. I thought we would start by revisiting the assignment description and to review the assignment package inclusions, review the rubric, and show you the exemplar that is posted on Moodle. Oops. Right, so here we go. Just a reminder, this is worth 20% of your final mark for the course. As I mentioned in class, you should complete observation 1 and 2. However, if observation 2 isn't 100% complete by this date, it should impose a problem. But ideally, you would be finished as much as possible of observation 2 to give appropriate comment. So to review the assignment, and this is also available on Moodle, we're using Classroom Observation Guide chart. This is, as a reminder, the chart that you have been formulating this semester to guide your own observations with the 4 columns. So you're looking to use that Classroom Observation Guide to guide your observations in your first and second placement. Hand in your reflections on how you saw principles of communicative language teaching and learning being realized or not in these particular classes. You may choose incidents or details from different class sessions to illustrate the points you are making in each category, or choose one class session to illustrate your thoughts about a given category. So from my experience, my students are looking for a myriad of different parts of their observation. In other words, their classroom observation guide charts tend to be quite full, which is excellent. And we must admit that we won't have time to discuss all of the points on your classroom observation chart. So you might want to just select or highlight the most salient points with which you would like to discuss in this report. In addition, discuss whether or how the difference in context between your first and second observations has had an impact on how communicative language teaching is practiced. So this also has been a big highlighted theme throughout the semester about the context and the ways in which the teaching decisions are impacted by the context. So this is an interesting point in which you can discuss as well. Note that this is not a comparison and contrast of the two teachers or institutions, but a reflection on the interplay of context and decision-making in teaching. You should refer to both contexts, both placements in your essay to reflect on the interplay of context and decision-making by the teachers. Please note that your thoughts on the relation between what you've seen and your own personal teaching style and goals are not intended to be a critique of the instructor or a declaration of how perfectly you are going to follow CLT principles in your teaching. You will be graded on this criterion in relation to what your comments show about your own personal emerging sense of yourself as a teacher, both strengths, actual or potential, and areas for growth. In other words, it's not necessary or appropriate for you to be critiquing everything that your host teacher did, but you're looking to analyze the rationale and the pedagogy behind the teaching decisions that they made in relation to their context and CLT principles. And it would be appropriate if you discussed how you intend to apply or not apply these things as you continue to progress through your practicum. As specific instructions, you would use the rubric that I'm about to pull up to focus your reflection paper addressing the following questions. What did you look for and why? So this should have a direct connection to the highlights on your classroom observation guide. What happened? Who, what, when, how long, etc. Again, these are the details, the recall, the remembering what happened. And although it is necessary to describe this as background information to move forward, I wouldn't spend too much time on this because that doesn't highlight the most accurate reflection process. How does this relate to CLT? And what did you learn? Okay, so for the format, we're going to be doing this electronically. This is actually a way that we could also continue to communicate about your assignments in the future. So your paper should be in paragraph form, in report form, following APA format, double-spaced. It is a formal report. It shouldn't be just a bunch of typed notes, essentially, and uploaded on Moodle for online submission. I'll be showing you where exactly in a moment. Your reflection paper should be typed, 5 to 6 pages long and double-spaced. If your paper is slightly longer, that wouldn't be a problem. However, if it's considerably longer, then that will pose a problem because I'm also hoping to have equity between the students, and that's why we have these types of restrictions. You'll also need to upload your completed classroom observation guide chart. You'll also need to upload your classroom observation hours report. This is an important document to verify your practice hours for the TESL Ontario's certification. And also be sure to cite any sources using APA format. Ideally, you will have some sources. I'm expecting students to be referring to the principles, the basic principles of CLT, which are indicated in the Brown book and also in one of my previous lectures. So now let's move on to the Moodle, in which you can see where all of this happens. So in the very first section called assignments, sorry, my Moodle looks a little bit different than yours, but in any case, we're looking at the observation reflection report. If you click on this folder, this will give you access to, hopefully you already know about this, the observation guide, the blank one, the observation hours report, the blank version as well, the assignment instructions, and this is where you can find the exemplar. Keep in mind that the exemplar is an average example of the assignment, not a stellar example of the assignment. And also the observation reflections rubric. I'd like to just pull this up quickly right now. The rubric is devised as a chart which indicates the levels of attainment for each of the criteria. And the criteria are the ones that I previously discussed on the assignment paper, but this gives you statements about how successfully you achieve these criteria. So I would recommend that you take a look at this before your submission in order to maximize your achievement. So now let's just take a look at the submission area. The submission area looks like this. Under assignments and in subcategories under the observation reflection report, we have here submit observation hours report for October. I'm hoping some people already submitted this. Yes, about half the class has already submitted. We also have submit observation hours report for November. Here you would submit your observation guide chart, a scanned copy, and here you would submit your observation reflection report. All of these 4 items will be due next week. Okay, well, this pretty much completes our online lecture about the observation reflection report in the critical reflection process. Just a reminder, next week our reports are due. The observation placement reflection analysis, this will happen in class. In the lecture, we'll be given some opportunity to discuss our learning experiences from the semester, and we will be preparing for the winter term. For this one, I'll be giving some general information about your practicum in the winter semester, including the schedule, and we'll also be doing some selection process for placement number 3. If you already have a verbal agreement with one of the teachers, please let me know as soon as possible in writing, and we'll also have our final mini lesson. Thank you so much. Have an excellent week.